Okay, good evening, members and members of the public and press, and those who are watching on the live stream throughout the county or further afield. Obviously, if the live stream does go down, we will attempt to repair it, and in which case I will adjourn the meeting, and obviously, depending on whether we can or cannot, we will proceed accordingly. But I'd like to thank you all for attending this meeting of the East Cambridgeshire District Council, which is the annual meeting. And the first item on the agenda is public question time. Are there any questions? There are no public questions. So we move on to the second item, which is election of chairman for 2022-2023. So if I can hand over to John for this.
Thank you, Chairman. We've only received one nomination for chairman, which is yourself, Councillor Alan Sharp, and that's to be proposed by Councillor Bailey. And I think we'll need an alternative seconder as well, please.
Very briefly, thank you, John. Yes, it gives me the greatest pleasure to nominate Councillor Alan Sharp to continue his chairmanship for a second year, as is tradition here at East Cambs District Council, and to formally thank him for all of the work as in the agenda, and I think as he's going to allude to over the last year, and thank him for his service for his chairmanship.
In Councillor Joshua Schuman's absence, Councillor Dan Schuman is going second. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor?
No, only happy to second, thank you.
Is that approved by council on nomination? Thank you. Thank you. We have a declaration, Chairman.
Oh, yes.
If you could read that out, please. Read it out to the council before you sign it.
Before I sign it, yeah. I, Alan Gordon Sharp, having been elected to the office of Chairman of East Cambridgeshire District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you, Chairman, and congratulations.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. I'll say a few more words slightly later. Item 4 is declarations of interest.
Apologies,
oh, sorry, apologies. Item 3, apologies for absence. I believe we have...
Thank you, Chairman. We have apologies from Councillor Kane, and it looks like we've got apologies from Councillor Schuman as well.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Declarations of interest. To receive declarations of interest from members for any items on the agenda in accordance with the members' code of conduct. Are there any declarations of interest? I'm seeing no hands, in which case we move on to item 5, which is the minutes of the meeting held on the 21st of April. I understand there's been one amendment from Councillor Dupre, which I know has been checked by Tracy, and is happy that that was a correct version of what happened. And I'll read it out to members. It's in the middle of the last big paragraph on page 3 of the minutes, where it says, and it starts off the sentence, it will be inappropriate to charge shift workers at times when public transport was unavailable, and there would be difficult cases such as disabled drivers and market traders. And Councillor Dupre is correctly advised that what should be added is who would need to be listened to and solutions found that help meet their needs, comma, but it was important not to rule out any options while the consultation process was ongoing. So is every member happy with that? That is the factual record of the meeting. Thank you. And are there any other comments on the minutes? No, thank you. In which case we take those as read. Item 6 then is election of vice chairman, and we have 2 nominations. Councillor Daniel Schumann. I don't know if the proposer wants.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. I'm very pleased to propose Councillor Dan Schumann for the election of Vice Chairman.
And the Chair, I'd second that.
Okay, thank you. Then we have Councillor Gareth Wilson, proposed by Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I would very much like to propose Councillor Wilson as Vice Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. And then the seconder.
I shall be seconding it, yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Trapp. Yeah. There'll now be ballot papers going around. I'll receive those from Tracy. Okay, members, we have the result of the election for Vice Chairman. 9 votes for Councillor Wilson and 17 votes for Councillor Dan Schumann. So Councillor Dan Schumann is duly elected as Vice Chairman for the next municipal year. He now needs to complete the declaration of acceptance.
I, Daniel Schumann, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of East Cambridge's District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability.
Thank you, Councillor Schumann, and congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Councillor Schumann. Item 7 is Chairman's announcements. There are a list of Chairman's engagements during the year for on the agenda paper. I just want to say a few words, and I don't mean too many. It's been a great privilege to serve as your Chairman for the past year, and I look forward to serving on your behalf for another year. Early on in my term of office, I was privileged to be at the formal opening of 14 affordable houses in Burwell, which the previous CPCA mayor had built. I laid a wreath on the Remembrance Day services in November, and on the 30th of April, laid a wreath at the rededication of the War Memorial after the original dedication on 30th of April 1922, exactly 100 years before. That was a very poignant moment. I will be laying a wreath on the 14th of June at the War Memorial, 40 years after the ceasefire of the Falklands conflict. And I'm sure that's a conflict that a lot of members here actually remember still, so I certainly do. And that will be remembering the 649 Argentinian servicemen, 255 British servicemen, and 3 Falkland Islands who lost their lives during that conflict. On the conflict, it was an honor, on the current conflict in Ukraine, it was an honour to be able to speak to 2 families who have arrived in the UK from Ukraine and discuss the issues that their families and others faced, and it was certainly very humbling. On the 29th of March, I planted a tree in Brinkley as part of the Queen's Jubilee, with a plaque as well, and that was certainly a poignant moment as well, because obviously that sets off the green canopy. And the final item is I was honoured on Tuesday of this week with the leader, Anna Bailey, Councillor Bailey, to be part of the meet and greet party for Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal when she came to Ely Cathedral to unveil the Fenland Black Oak project. If you get a chance, the table is, they've made the oak into a table for the nation. It is 39 feet long. It's an absolutely stunning exhibition, and it's going to be there till spring of next year. So those watching on live stream who don't live in Ely, please come to Ely and look at it and spend some money in the city. It will be gratefully received. But being serious, it's a wonderful example of our local history and the way the Fens had huge oak trees 5,000 years ago that then fell into the peat and have been started to be, they're being rediscovered. And this is only a third probably of the actual height of that tree. But that is my report. I move on to item 8, which is a vote of thanks to Joe Brooke, Director of Operations. And I want to, if I can call upon Councillor Anna Bailey to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you, Chairman, very much. And it is, of course, with very, very mixed feelings that I propose this vote of thanks. But Joe, it's so good to see you here at full council this evening. Jo started work at East Cams in June 2013 as our Principal Housing Officer and made a huge and immediate impact for residents in housing need across the district. Jo showed her capability of grappling with apparently intractable problems and found ways of dealing with them, earning the respect and loyalty of her colleagues, and always with a razor-like focus on getting good outcomes for people, which is absolutely what drives and motivates Jo. Jo moved on with her career at East Cams when in September 2014, she became Director of Operations, taking a large number of services under her wing. But a piece of Jo's heart always remained with her housing team. And her legacy within that team is as clear to see today as it was then. The thing about Jo is that she sprinkles a little bit of Jo-ness everywhere that she goes and everything that she does. And Jo, you've done so much in your time here at East Cams. It's simply impossible to mention all of it. Jo's never satisfied with just okay. It's always about being the best and helping others to be the best that they can be. In her new role, Jo got immediately stuck into setting up and implementing new performance framework and the can-do culture that still is at the very heart of the organisation today. And Jo works by earning the respect and trust of her staff, by supporting them when they need it, stepping away when they don't, and always ensuring that recognition of achievements belongs to them rather than to herself. Jo took on the huge task of bringing the waste service back in-house. Together with James Kahn and their waste crews, and lots of bacon rolls, they set about transforming the service and driving new initiatives, including a large and ongoing community engagement programme to encourage recycling and responsible waste disposal by residents. And it led to the district's excellent recycling rate, which is the highest in the county and in the top 20 nationally. We're not quite made it to the top yet, Jo, but we will continue. Part of the campaign was to engage young people through the schools competition, which led to the infamous Michael Recycle, who makes regular appearances at various events and on social media. Jo supported the planning team through huge change, mentoring Rebecca and ensuring that positive change was embedded and lasting. Jo has an absolute passion, a nerdy passion, she won't mind me saying, for emergency planning activity. And it was a huge frustration to Jo that when COVID struck, she herself was stuck in hospital. But on her return to work, Jo led the council's COVID recovery effort with massive gusto and the ongoing response as lockdowns came and went. And she brought in schemes to encourage people to get outdoors safely and help children, even help children to see Santa online when visits to grottos weren't allowed, and many, many other initiatives that only come from Jo, frankly. The creativity is endless. And Jo's an absolute expert at getting money from other organisations, always shoehorning in cash for East Cams. She did it often and regularly and very successfully. Jo's also very passionate about the environment, hedgehogs in particular, and both those elements have shone through in her work at East Cams, where alongside Richard Kay, she's passionately thrown herself into the council's environment plan and our yearly commitments, always sprinkling ideas with a little bit of Jo-ness to spark imaginations and bring them to life. And Jo's love of hedgehogs has spread into the organisation too, both in the planning service. And when Jo, in fact, moved to Little Ouse, she discovered that it's in fact not such a natural habitat for hedgehogs, being heavily agricultural. And so Jo has, in fact, mentored Maggie and donated her very high quality, I'm told, hedgehog houses. And Maggie is now doing the sterling work that Jo did previously and saving and supporting hedgehogs and doing our bit for the hedgehog population of East Cams. And whose plans do we think are being implemented for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee? All Jo, all Jo's, of course, and they are lasting. Jo loves a little bit of royalty. She can't help herself. And I've never seen her quite so excited as on meeting Prince Charles on his visit to the district, an operation that from East Cam's point of view, Jo personally oversaw and ran with military precision. And I think there were many practices at curtsying before that event. And of course, Jo also attended a royal garden party at Buckingham Palace, which obviously required the purchase of a new hat. Jo is first and foremost a very, very proud and dedicated public servant, and she's a brilliant one. And Jo, I speak for all my group. It's been our absolute privilege to work with you, and we thank you for all that you've done for the council, for residents, for the district. We were so lucky when you made that move from Devon and became a Fenny. You're the beating heart of East Cambs, Jo, and your legacy is clear to see everywhere. And I know that the organisation continues to say and will continue to say every single day, what would Jo do? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I now call upon Councillor Dupre to second the vote of thanks.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair, and it is a great privilege to second this vote of thanks to Jo. I won't say it's a pleasure because we really, really don't want to see you go, and I know you feel the same. I've always been hugely impressed by Jo as a dedicated member of the council senior officer team. I joined this council as a member the year after Jo joined as an officer, but I became aware of her at the point of her well-deserved promotion, and that was such a great move for Jo and also for the council. Jo's always described herself as a housing girl, but the scope of the issues she's been called upon to deal with have stretched far beyond that. She's extremely hardworking, absolutely committed and diligent, with a real passion to find solutions that work for people and to bring everybody around the table and hammer things out until they're done and done right. Jo's always been very helpful to me in addressing issues in my own ward and across the council more widely, and I know that she has performed that service without fear or favour for every single member of this authority, and we all have cause to be deeply grateful to Jo for her commitment to the council, to the community of East Cambridgeshire, and her role in helping us to represent them to our very best. I've not only been impressed by Jo, I have always at a personal level liked and respected her. The last couple of years in particular have been incredibly difficult, but she's borne them with an amazing courage, a smile and a positive attitude always, which leave me dumbfounded with her attitude, her approach, but not surprised, because that is absolutely everything that I know of Jo and that Jo has always been. I shall personally miss Jo enormously. I know members of my group will, and I know that Jo will miss this council too. We all wish this departure were at a different time and in different circumstances, but on behalf of my group, I would like to say, thank you, Jo, you did us proud. Thank you.
I'd now like to call upon Councillor Hoffa, Chair of the Operational Services Committee.
I first met Jo when as a newly elected member in 2015, when as a newly elected member with a passion for all things waste related, I became member champion for waste. I remember sitting in a meeting with Veolia and Jo and thinking the expression, an iron fist in a velvet glove, could have been created just for Jo. I quickly realised that her passions, apart from her cats and handbags, were her staff and her residents. She fought fiercely to get Veolia to provide a service worthy of our residents. And when it became clear that the standards they offered were miles away from what Jo wanted to give our district, she oversaw the bringing back in-house of our wonderful waste team with determination, intelligence, and kindness. She successfully delivered a first-class service for her residents and better terms and conditions for her beloved waste crews. She never asked anyone to do anything she wouldn't do herself. She leads from the front, and her loyalty, humour, and kindness will be with me forever. She leaves very large shoes to fill. She has set the bar very high, and I will miss her enormously. God bless you, Jo. I feel privileged to have worked with you, and I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for East Cambs.
I've got a number of members who've indicated they want to speak on this, and I'll go first to Councillor Inskip, then I've got Councillor Ambrose, David Ambrose Smith, then Councillor Bill Hunt. And
thank you, Chair. Much has already been said with the first speakers about Jo, but I'd just like to add a few comments. So it was 3 years ago that I was elected to this authority and became the group spokesperson on Operational Services Committee. And that's the moment I had my first meeting with Jo to learn about the wide range of services that were overseen by Jo and by the committee. And immediately in that meeting, her enthusiasm for her job, the job that she was doing, and the responsibility that she felt, that she held was immediately very clear. She talked with pride about, as we've heard already, her background in housing and those early achievements that she had in those first years with the authority. We've heard so much about the other things that she's done. I was particularly pleased to see what she was doing with Richard Kane in terms of the environment plan and getting that initiative off the ground. But as well as those big sort of council-wide services, as Councillor Dupre has said, she's always there to help us out as ward councillors with those issues, those little issues that affect our communities. And it's really with a huge sadness that we're coming to this. First of all, that we learned of Jo's retirement and that we've got the vote of thanks today. So I'd like to associate myself with all of the comments that have already been made to add my thanks to Jo's years of service to this district council and the dedication that she's shown, and hope that she can reflect, I guess, not just in terms of what she's done for East Cambs, but more generally through her career, to see that she's made a huge contribution to public service, and I thank her for that.
thank you, Councillor Inskip. I've got Councillor David Ambrose Smith.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, most of what I've got here has already been said, so you don't mind me repeating it, do you? No. During my time as Chair of Operational Services, Jo was unfailingly helpful, explaining background where necessary, putting matters into context, telling me when I was wrong, which was often, and agreeing me when I was right, which was seldom. Jo never told me what she thought I might want to hear. Now I'm going to miss out Jo, all the bits that I've actually said. I'm sure that I'm not the only member who has gained so much with working with you, Jo. I trust that Jo already knows that the high regard that myself and other members feel for her, and I regret that she will no longer be working with us. Jo, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor David Ambrose Smith. I've got Councillor Bill Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we've had some very eloquent speakers tonight, and I think they've covered most of Jo's qualities. I'd just like to say, from my point of view, that she's managed to combine efficiency and kindness all in the same meeting, which is normally very difficult. If you're being told off, you're being told off. If you're being congratulated, you're being congratulated. But she managed to mix the two together very well. I find her a truly inspirational officer and a very hard to replace indeed. And quite honestly, it's going to be a very, very difficult act to follow. Jo, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. I've got Councillor Every now.
Thank you, Chair. I arrived 9 years ago, and I came in from a by-election, always a really difficult time to come in, and I was given a special project to do on housing. And Jo was the very first officer that I worked with. And 1 hour with her was worth 6 months of training that I could have had anywhere else. She was generous with her time, her advice, and over the years, her constant professionalism has totally amazed me. And I'm very, very grateful that hopefully some of that has rubbed out on us. I particularly want to mention the youth strategy. We came to agree to do the youth strategy. Desperately wanted to do this, probably didn't know how to do it, but Jo told us how to do it. She put it in place. And to be honest, Jo, all the youngsters in our area are going to benefit from the legacy that you started on our youth strategy. And I thank you on behalf of them. And also to thank you for the work that you did with us on the Community Safety Partnership, taking it from quite an iffy partnership to something which was strong. And also the legacy of that will be the community safety of all our residents in East Cambridgeshire. Jo's been a constant source of advice. The iron fist in the velvet glove is absolutely right. And yes, and I've been told off as well, which I'm very grateful for. She's been accessible, kind, and a critical friend, a superb officer, and I will miss you enormously as an officer, a colleague, and I would like to say a friend. It's been a privilege to work with you, Jo. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Every. I'm seeing no other members wishing to speak on it now. What I want to do now is move the formal vote of thanks to Jo. And personally, I feel we should stand for that, and or those who can, obviously. And yeah, I'd like to thank Jo for all of her work on behalf of the council and for the future. Thank you. Thank you, members. I know Jo wants to say a few words, but first, I'll turn.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I promise I'm not going to blurb on for very long. So thank you, members, for all of your kind and probably over generous words. It seems incredible that almost 10 years to the day I joined East Cambs to help reduce your little homeless problem in our area. And since then, gosh, what a roller coaster ride it has been. I'd hoped my journey would continue for many years to come. But unfortunately, cancer had other ideas to the point where approximately 12 weeks ago, I had emergency surgery to remove a 6-centimetre lump from my what was small brain already. Although not expected to survive, my usual stubbornness kicked in and I'm still here. But it required me to review my decisions and my options and make the hardest decision of my career to retire at a very tender age of 53. The past 2 weeks have been surreal, absolutely surreal, but I know I've made the right decision for me to enjoy every moment of the time I've got left, to create precious memories to take with me. But every day I'm missing the job that I loved and thrived on. Whilst I couldn't always give you the answers you wanted, hopefully I gave you options. What I do know is that I leave behind a cracking set of service leads and officers, including my 65 hairy men, who look for solutions and want to help as much as possible. A bunch of colleagues that I'm incredibly proud of, the very essence of open for business and can-do attitude, where customers and our residents are at the heart of everything we do. I'm incredibly proud of being a public servant, 37 years worth of proudness actually, and I've had the best of times at East Cams. My first day felt like I came home. It's been brilliant. Thank you once again for your very kind words that I will treasure. Thank you. Very much. I'm going to bugger off now.
Yeah, we're just going to have a very short adjournment while Joe leaves, and then we will resume.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, members, the live stream is back on now. So thank you for some wonderful words in honour of Joe. That was really touching. If I can move on to item 9, which is the making, or as the agenda paper says, the adoption of the Iceland neighbourhood plan.
Chair,
sorry.
Councillor Ambrose Smith is just returning, I think, from helping Joe out.
Okay. Okay, I'll hold for a couple of seconds then. Yeah, thanks. John to go ahead. So if I move, as I said, to item 9, which is the making adoption of the Iceland. Oh, they're now coming back in. I thought the thumbs up was that to carry ahead without them. Sorry, no, that's fine, David. No problem. Thank you. Okay, moving to item 9, as I said, the making of the Iceland neighbourhood plan. If I can ask Sally Bonnet to introduce the paper, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening. The Iceland neighbourhood plan received the majority support needed at the recent referendum, with approximately 92% of the vote in favour. The plan now needs to be formally made or adopted by the council so it becomes part of the development plan for East Cambridgeshire. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, if I can call upon Councillor Hoffa to propose the adoption.
Thank you, Chair. It gives me great pleasure to propose the Iceland neighbourhood plan for adoption or making. I know the enormous amount of work that went into formulating this plan, the hours of time spent by and given up by volunteers to bring this extraordinary document to life that will benefit all the residents of Iceland. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hoffa. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Goldsack.
Yeah, thank you. Just say a few words to the... Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Like Councillor Hoffa, we've seen the parish council saw the lead taken at places like Fordham and other areas that got the neighbourhood plans in. They've seen the benefits that come from it, worked tirelessly for this and produced a terrific plan, which for me as a local authority member and a resident of this fine village, I'm absolutely delighted to second here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I've got Councillor Inskip.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Having been through the neighbourhood plan process myself for my own village, I'm aware that it is a lengthy and time-consuming process. It does take a lot of time and effort, but it does have many benefits and something I'd encourage many more communities in East Cambridgeshire to do. You know, it is a statutory planning document that enables you to develop more detailed policies for your community, as well as to come up with more updated policies when we have a local plan that's now 7 years old. I'd like to say well done to the community in Iceland and to Iceland Parish Council for going through the process and preparing this very thorough and comprehensive neighbourhood plan. And I'm too very pleased to see that we should be able to adopt the document this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Are there any more speakers on this? Councillor David Ambrose Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Just an observation. Thank you for this. This is the neighbourhood plan for Iceland, but also for all of those other neighbourhood plans which are about. Littleport is about to start theirs next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ambrose Smith. Did Councillor Hoffa want to say any words? Something?
Thank you, Chair. No.
In which case we go to the vote. All those in favour? I think that's unanimous. Thank you, members. In which case the Iceland neighbourhood plan is formally adopted. Thank you. And thank you for the hard work done by the parish council and others on that. Item 10 is to receive petitions, if any, and there are none. Item 11, notice of motion under Procedure Rule 10. There aren't any. So we move to item 12, which is to answer questions from members, and I've got 4 questions. The first question is from Councillor Mark Inskip to the Chairman of the Operational Services Committee. Councillor Inskip.
Thank you, Chair. On Friday, the 11th of February, councillors were informed of major changes to the refuse collection service run by East Cams Street Scene to be introduced on the 28th of March of this year. I raised a number of queries and concerns to officers in response. I was particularly concerned about the changes being introduced during a period where the regular collection cycle is disrupted by a series of bank holidays. I specifically asked whether consideration had been given to deferring this change to a more stable period for collection days, for example, after the last of the April, May and June bank holidays. As East Cams residents are only too well aware, no change was made to the introduction of the round reconfiguration changes. And as a consequence, they faced weeks of disruption with wheelie bins not being entered on the planned collection day and black bags being piled upon streets for days at a time. Most recently this weekend in my own ward, complaints of black bags in one area that remained uncollected for 2 weeks, despite miscollections being reported multiple times. I will add that problem was finally resolved yesterday after nearly 3 weeks. The timing of the change has guaranteed that the issues faced by residents have been amplified and extra stress put on refuse crews who had additional work as a consequence of the bank holiday catch-ups. Will the Chair of Operational Services apologise to residents for the weeks of disruption to a core council service, and will she acknowledge that it was a mistake to introduce these changes just prior to a series of bank holidays?
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Councillor Hoffa.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor Inskip. Making major changes to the most important service to all our residents was not something that was done lightly or on a whim. As some areas of our district have grown exponentially, the pressure on our crews has also grown in certain areas on certain days. Due to the ever-evolving nature of the service provided, the daily constraints and the pressures it presents, there would never be an ideal time to implement a project of this magnitude. Much thought was given to the time of the implementation and the additional confusion that bank holiday collections presents to all. From April to August 2022, 4 out of the 5 months experienced at least one bank holiday, with June experiencing an additional day due to the Queen's Jubilee. As you head into July, the only month without a bank holiday, you then encounter the school holidays and peak leave pressures. The increasing pressure East Cam Street Scene experienced from the staffing shortage, which resulted in the temporary suspension of the green waste collection service during December and January, was continuing. And without reconfiguring the collection rounds, this pressure could have caused another suspension of the green waste when the demand for this service was higher. The council and East Cam Street Scene did not want this to happen. And although there were challenges highlighted in connection with the bank holidays, after careful consideration and the successful use of communication methods, it was deemed the right time to implement the project. This is not something that can be trialled or a dummy run carried out. Many hours were spent working out the new routes, which involve crews doing rounds they have never done before. And although the crews are working really hard, errors have been made and some residents have been inconvenienced. However, things are getting back to the gold standard of service we are used to before the changes were made. Councillors Inskip and Dupre made much of the missed collections in Witchford recently. Maybe if they had sought answers from officers before playing the blame game, a more balanced comment could have been made, but never let the facts get in the way of a tweet, district council report to a parish council, or a headline in a leaflet. On that particular day, a Saturday, the reason for the failed collections was nothing to do with round configurations, but an unexpected staff shortage, which meant that certain areas could not be collected as expected. This would have been the case with or without the changes to the collection schedule. In future, I would ask certain members opposite to check for facts before hurling accusations about the incompetence of management. I have spoken to the waste team, Councillor Inskip, about the pile of black bags uncollected for 2 weeks. They have investigated, they have resolved the issue. I understand it's something to do with cars parked down a very narrow channel, in which case then if you can furnish me with details, I will take it up with James Khan. I, of course, apologise unreservedly to any residents who have been inconvenienced in the last 6 weeks. And I ask their forbearance and understanding as the new routes become as familiar to our amazing crews as the old routes were. Personally, I'm still getting used to putting my bins out on a Sunday, and I often awake with a start on a Wednesday morning in a panic thinking I've missed bin day. All the residents I've spoken to and have helped when they have experienced problems have been understanding and sympathetic. Maybe Councillor Inskip, you could take the same approach. I'm puzzled by your statement that you queried the timing of changes in February. Can I ask who you raised this with? Because I have no record of any such conversation, either by email or committee. And if I'm wrong, then I apologise. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hoffa. I now move on to the second question, which is from Councillor Simon Harries to the Leader of the Council.
New legislation requires all voters to show photo ID in order to exercise their right to vote. There is concern this may lead to disenfranchisement among the estimated 20% of the population that has no acceptable photo ID at the moment and cannot afford to pay for the most common options, which are passport or driving licence. We understand that councils are responsible for ensuring voters in their own area receive acceptable photo ID free of charge in time to exercise their right to vote. So will the Leader of the Council please explain the process they plan to adopt for first notifying voters of the need to show photo ID, secondly notifying voters of the process to be followed in order to receive free photo ID from the Council, and third, producing and distributing such photo ID in time for the first elections for which this photo ID is legally required.
Thank you, Councillor Harries. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Harries, for your question, and thank you to our Democratic Services officers for their advice on the answer. The Elections Act received royal assent on the 28th of April 2022, but will require secondary legislation, in fact, to enact the various provisions within it, including the requirement for voter identification. Preliminary indications are that the current intention is for voter ID to be introduced in time for the May 2023 elections. However, there's no detail about timescale at this stage or how the process will operate. It is anticipated that central government will run a national public awareness campaign and that authorities will be expected to coordinate local publicity of the requirements. As soon as Democratic Services have further details from the enactment of secondary legislation and the guidance from central government on the processes that the council are required to follow, we will of course update all councillors on our implementation plan.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. The third question is from Councillor Dupre, and it's from Councillor Dupre, and it's to Councillor Joshua Schumann. Sadly, Councillor Joshua Schumann cannot be here tonight, so what I'm suggesting with the advice of the Chief Exec is that Councillor de Bray reads the question out, and we then get a written response which will be circulated to all members from Councillor Schumann. Thank you, Councillor de Bray.
Thank you, Chair. The question is, at the council meeting on the 21st of April, Councillor Joshua Schumann seconded the motion to lend £7.5 million to East Cambs Trading Company. He spoke in support of the motion, assuring councillors that the council's Section 151 officer had scrutinised the company's business plan. And that's minuted in the minutes we have in front of us. On the 6th of May, the shareholders' meeting scheduled for the 12th of May was postponed. My group has been advised that the reason for this postponement was that the business plan for 2022 to 23 was not due to be received by the board of East Cambs Trading Company until June. As the business plan for 2022-23 has not yet been received by East Cambs Trading Company's board, why did Councillor Schumann assure this council that the Section 151 officer had scrutinised it?
Thank you, Councillor de Bray. If I can ask Democratic Services to obviously contact Councillor Schumann and get a written response, which, as I say, we will circulate to all members. Yes. Thank you. The fourth and final question this evening is from Councillor Alec Jones to the Leader of the Council. Councillor Jones.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, this was originally brought up by Councillor Kane, and she was just looking for a bit further clarification. Obviously, she previously brought up at a previous meeting, but under Schedule 4, I'll read out the question if I may. Schedule 4, Section 3 of the Memorandum of the Understanding with the ECSS states that the operational changes to the refuse service can only be made with the endorsement of the Chair of the Regulatory Services Committee or equivalent. Regular green waste collections were suspended by the ECSS between the 13th of December 2021 and 28th of January 2022. Now, in her email between Charlotte Kane on the 6th of January and Councillor Hoffa, the Chair of Operational Services Committee stated that you'll note the changes can be made with the endorsement of the Chair of Operational Services or equivalent, and in this case, the Leader of the Council. So really, we're looking from the Leader of the Council just for some clarification on whether she did personally endorse the suspension of the green waste collections between Monday the 13th of December 2021 and January 28, 22. If so, is there any formal email or conversation being recorded on that? And, you know, really we're looking for clarification on which member of the services, which members are equivalent to the Chair of Regulatory Services, just for clarity for future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for your question. The administration agreed to the suspension of green waste for a short period last year at a meeting on the 22nd of November 2021 with officers here at the council offices in the Grange. The meeting was attended by myself as leader and the deputy leader of the council. The chairman of the Operational Services Committee, which took over responsibility for the waste contract when it superseded the Regulatory Services Committee, has already confirmed that she supported that decision to ensure the health and well-being of staff and the smooth running of the rest of the service. And for further background and context for anybody that is interested, I refer them to page 7 of the minutes of the previous meeting that are in the council agenda papers for this evening, which gives a lot of detail about why these changes were necessary, and it was arising from that first instance where we did need to carry out that suspension of the green waste service. I think this subject has had a lot of airtime now. It's been well articulated, and you know, if there are further queries, I would ask opposition members to just please simply put them forward, and we're happy to answer them. There's no need to keep airing the same subject at full council meetings, frankly.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Yes, Councillor Dupre.
I don't think the last part of the question was even attempted to be addressed. Who is regarded as the equivalent to the Chair of Regulatory Services for the purpose of that part of the understanding of the company?
I'm not aware, Councillor Dupre's capacity under the constitution of this item. I've given my answer, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Answer is what it is. If it doesn't answer the question, then obviously you can come back at some other stage with a further question or another route.
Sorry, point of order. So can you confirm that you're not answering that part of the question? Councillor Downing, Councillor Bailey has given her answer. I'm not going to, you know, if that doesn't answer the question that members have asked on that side, then as I say, you can then come back at a further time with questions to take that up. I don't really want to have a debate about it at this stage. Thank you. That moves us on to item 13, which is the leader and deputy leader of the council, group leaders and deputies, which is for noting. From the chair, I will propose that we note this item. And
happy to second that.
My vice chair is going to second. Are there any comments, questions on this? No, good. Move on. Thank you. Item 14 is the political proportionality. And again, as it's a statement of fact in terms of proportion, I propose to propose this item from the chair.
Happy to second again, Chair.
Are there any comments, questions on this? No, that is noted. Thank you. And then item 15 is the membership of committees and subcommittees, including substitutes. And again, this says it's all laid out in the agenda paper. And again, as it's a item for noting the setup of the committee, I propose that from the chair.
Happy to second.
To make it clear it's approving.
Yes, yes. As the chief executive, the council is approving the membership of these committees, and each group has had a chance to look at them and put forward their. So unless there are any amendments, I'm hoping that everybody is in favour of that. Yeah. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, we have item 16. I've just lost my 16A, so I've just lost my piece of paper. Which is the nominations for the appointments to the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. I propose from the chair that there's 2.1 and 2.2. I propose from the chair to read out what I believe to be the appointees, and if the groups can make sure that agrees with their line, is that small a is to appoint the leader of council to act as a council appointee to the combined authority, and that is Councillor Bailey, with the substitute member being Councillor Joshua Schumann. Nominate 2 members in line with Appendix 1 to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, and 2 substitute members, and that is Councillor Dupre from the Liberal Democrats with Councillor Kane as a substitute, and myself, Councillor Alan Sharp, and the substitute being Councillor Bill Hunt from the Conservative group. And then the 1 member in line with Appendix 2 to the Audit and the Governance Committee, and 1 substitute member, which is Councillor David Brown as the member and Councillor David Ambrose Smith as the substitute. Then item 2.2 is that the Chief Executive be authorised to make any amendments to the appointments to Overview and Scrutiny and the Audit and Governance Committee, in consultation with the political group leaders if the political balance is amended by the combined authority between now and the next council meeting. So is everybody in agreement with that? Yes, thank you. Then moving on to 16B, which we have on that paper, the reports and minutes from the meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee on the 11th of March 2022, the Overview and Scrutiny Committee on the 28th of March 2022, and the Combined Authority Board on the 30th of March 2022. Are there any questions of the designated members from this authority on those minutes? No, I'm seeing no, in which case those are noted. Then moving on to item 17, which is the appointment of the board director
for East Cams street scene. If I can hand over to John, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Nothing to add to the report, thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. Do I have a proposer for the recommendation? Councillor Bailey.
Yes, very happy to propose the appointment of Sally Bonnet, the Corporate Unit Manager, as Board Director of ECSS. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hoffa.
Happy to second, Chair.
Are there any other speakers on this? Councillor Dupre.
Very briefly, Chair, a reprise of last time. We have over and over again raised our concerns at the conflict of interest involved in board appointments to the council's trading companies. We do so again, our position has not changed, and as last time, it's absolutely nothing personal.
Okay, Councillor Dupre, thank you. Can I have a, do you wish to come back and speak up? So we go to the vote. All those in favour of the appointment of Sally Bonnet as Director of ECSS. And all those against? And all those abstaining?
That's carried by 17 votes in favour, with no votes against and 9 abstentions.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Moving on then to item 18, you'll see that we've got exempt minutes on the agenda. Now, what I'm proposing, I can see the sun is causing issues for some members here. We're just going to shut it out. Thank you, John. It's sad to shut it out, but obviously we want members to be able to concentrate and see what's going on. Yes, in terms of agenda item 18, what I'm proposing from the chair here, and I'll read this out. Members, does anyone wish to raise a question or an issue regarding the accuracy of these minutes? Or can we confirm them as a correct record without requirement to go into the exempt session? So basically, if any member wants to raise an issue on them, then we will go into exempt. If not, we would just take them as read. I'm seeing no dissent to that, so in which case those minutes are accepted as a true record. That concludes the full council meeting this evening, but it doesn't include the formal business because we now have the annual meetings of the committees. So if I could ask members to do as instructed by Maggie, as I'm handing over to her.
Thank you, Chairman. I will take this in the order it's published in the agenda and begin with the Finance and Assets Committee. When I call your name, could you either stand or raise your hand, please? Got Councillor Anna Bailey, Councillor Ian Bovingdon, Councillor David Brown, Councillor Mark Goldsack, Councillor Bill Hunt, Councillor Julia Hoffa, Councillor Lorna Dupre, Councillor Simon Harries, Councillor John Trapp, Councillor Alison Whelan, and Councillor Sue Austin. Thank you, members. As this is the first meeting of the Finance and Assets Committee, the first item on the agenda is to elect a chairman for the ensuing municipal year. Can I have a nomination for chairman, please?
I'd like to propose David Brown.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Brown?
I would like to second David Brown.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. As there are no other nominations, I declare Councillor Brown as chairman of the Finance and Assets Committee for the ensuing municipal year. I'll now hand over to Councillor Brown to take you through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, members. I look forward to working with you all again this coming year. Item 2 on the agenda is to elect a vice chairman for the ensuing municipal year. And from the chair, I would like to propose Councillor Bovingdon. I have a second.
Yes, I'm going to second that.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to nominate Councillor Alison Whelan.
I have a second. Thank you, Councillor Harris. Members, we go to the vote. All those in favour of Councillor Bovingdon, please show. All those in favour of Councillor Alison Rubin, please shout.
So, Councillor Bovington's nomination is ratified by 6 votes to 4.
Thank you. Congratulations, Councillor. Moving on to agenda item 3, Finance and Assets Ethical Governance Subcommittee. We're here to appoint 7 district council members to the F&A Ethical Governance Subcommittee for the coming year. You have the names in front of you. Do I have any indication of changes to those? If not, shall we take them as read? Take them as read. The chairman will be appointed at the individual meetings of that committee. Item 4, Personnel Appeals Subcommittee. We're looking to appoint 3 members to the Personnel Appeals Subcommittee, being myself, Councillor Bovington and Councillor Trapp. Councillor Trapp, is that confirmed? Yeah. Thank you. Item 5 is the East Cambs Bus, Cycle and Walk Working Party, and we're reappointing the Working Party for 22-23. Have the names in front of you. I confirm those as correct. Thank you, everybody. I declare the meeting closed.
Thank you. We now move on to Operational Services Committee, and when I call your name, could you either stand or raise your hand, please? We've got Councillor Christine Ambrose-Smith, Councillor David Ambrose-Smith, Councillor Liz Ebery, Councillor Julia Hoffa. Could we have a substitute for Councillor Joshua Schumann, please? Oh, Councillor, right, yeah, sorry. Councillor Joe Webber, Councillor Mark Inskip, Councillor Alec Jones, Councillor John Trapp, Councillor Christine Whelan, and Councillor Paolo Tremarco. Thank you. Thank you, members. As it's the first meeting of the Operational Services Committee, the first item on the agenda is to elect a chairman for the ensuing municipal year. Can I have a nomination for chairman, please?
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Julia Hoffa, chairman of Operational Services.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for Councillor?
Yes, I'd like to second, please.
Thank you. Are there any other nominees? Thank you. As there are no other nominations, I declare Councillor Julia Hoffa as chairman of the Operational Services Committee for the ensuing municipal year. I'll now hand over to Councillor Hoffa to take you through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Maggie. My first item of business is to elect a vice chairman for the ensuing municipal year. From the chair, I propose David Ambrose-Smith. Do I have a seconder? That's a second from Liz Ebery.
I'd like to second that.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other nominations? Yes. Oh, one at a time. Who wants it?
National seconder.
Can we now go to the vote then, please? All those in favour of David Ambrose-Smith? And all those in favour of Councillor Inskip?
Councillor David Ambrose-Smith is elected by 6 votes to 4.
Thank you very much. That concludes the business of the Operational Services meeting. Look forward to seeing you in June. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We now move on to the Audit Committee. And again, when I call your name, could you please stand or raise your hand? Councillor Liz Ebery, Councillor Dan Schumann, Councillor Alan Sharp, Councillor Christine Whelan, who is acting as substitute, and Councillor Mark Inskip. Thank you, members. As this is the first meeting of the Audit Committee, the first item is to elect a chairman for the ensuing municipal year. Can I have a nomination for chairman?
Yes, can I propose Councillor Ebery?
I'd second that.
Do we have any other nominations?
Yes, can I propose Councillor Kane?
And I second that.
Okay, at this point, can I ask Councillor Every to leave the room, please? Thank you. As the chairmanship is contested, I'll now hand over to the Vice Chairman, Councillor Dan Schumann, to conduct the vote. Thank you, Councillor Schumann.
Thank you. We start with all in favour of Councillor Liz Every. And Councillor Charlotte Kane. So I believe I must have the casting vote. My casting vote goes to Councillor Liz Every.
Thank you. I declare Councillor Every as Chairman of the Audit Committee for the ensuing municipal year. I'll now hand over to Councillor Every to take us through the rest of the agenda, please.
Thank you very much indeed. We are now item 2 to elect a Vice Chairman for the ensuing municipal year, and from the Chair I would like to nominate Dan Schumann. Can I have a seconder?
And I'll second that.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations?
Yes, I'd like to propose Councillor Kane.
Yeah. Do I have a second?
Second it, yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Can I go to the vote, please? All those in favour of Dan Schumann as Vice Chair? And all those in favour of Councillor Kane? Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. We now move on to Licensing Committee. And again, I'll call your name. Could you please stand or raise your hand? Councillor Christine Ambrose Smith. Councillor David Ambrose Smith. Councillor Lavinia Edwards. Councillor Julia Hoffa. Councillor Alan Sharp. Councillor Joe Webber. Councillor Simon Harries. Councillor Mark Inskip. Councillor Alec Jones, Councillor Gareth Wilson, Councillor Sue Austin. Thank you, members. As this is the first meeting of the Licensing Committee, the first item on the agenda is to elect a chairman for the ensuing municipal year. Can I have a nomination for chairman, please?
I would like to propose Councillor Julia Hoffa as chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Thank you. Do we have any other nominations? As there are no other nominations, I declare Councillor Julia Hoffa as Chairman of the Licensing Committee for the ensuing municipal year. I'll now hand over to Councillor Hoffa to take you through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you, Maggie. The item number 2, to elect a Vice Chairman for the ensuing municipal year. From the Chair, I'd like to propose Joe Webber. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, I'll second that, Chairman.
Do I have any other nominations?
I'd like to propose Alec Jones, Councillor Alec Jones.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Harris, seconding. In which case then can we go to the vote then? Can we have all those in favour of Councillor Webber? And all those in favour of Councillor Jones?
Beg your pardon. Councillor Webber is elected by 7 votes to 4. Sorry, beg your pardon.
Thank you, Tracy. On to item number 3 of the agenda, the Licensing Statutory Committee. Does everybody agree with the appointments that are here listed? So that's Lavinia Edwards, Alan Sharp, Alec Jones, for the 3 members, with the substitute as myself and Joe Webber and John Trapp. The first item of business for that particular subcommittee will be to appoint a chair at its first meeting. On to item number 4, the Licensing Non-Statutory Subcommittee. The Conservative members are Christine Ambrose Smith, Julia Hoffa and Alan Sharp. and the Liberal Democrat members are Alec Jones and Gareth Wilson. Is there any change to that? And the first item of business on that particular subcommittee will be to appoint a chair for the municipal year. I think that meeting took place. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings me on to Planning Committee. When I call your name, could you please stand or raise your hand? Councillor Christine Ambrose Smith. Councillor David Brown. Councillor Lavinia Edwards. Councillor Liz Every. Councillor Bill Hunt. Councillor Lisa Stubbs. Councillor Matt Downey. Councillor Alec Jones. Councillor John Trapp. Councillor Gareth Wilson. Councillor Sue Austin. Thank you, members. As this is the first meeting of the Planning Committee, the first item on the agenda is to elect a chairman for the ensuing municipal year. Can I have a nomination for chairman, please?
I'd like to propose Councillor Bill Hunt.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Thank you. As there are no other nominations, I declare Councillor Hunt as chairman of the Planning Committee for the ensuing municipal year. I will now hand over to Councillor Hunt to take you through the rest of the agenda.
Thank you. There's only one item, and that's to appoint a vice chairman. And I would like to nominate Lisa Stubbs as the vice chairman of the Planning Committee. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Are there any other? There are other nominations. Okay.
Yes, I would like to propose Matt Down, Councillor Downey, as the vice chair.
I would like to second it.
Okay, so we'll now go to the vote, and those in favour of Councillor Lisa Stubbs being a vice chairman, please raise their hands. And those in favour of Councillor Wilson, I believe it was. Councillor Downey, I beg your pardon.
Right.
Councillor Stubbs is elected by 7 votes to 4.
Well, in which case that seems to wind up the meeting of the Planning Committee. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Obviously, that just for those people watching on the live stream, that is the end of the proceedings for this evening, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll come watch it again. Thank you very much, members. Have a safe journey home.